we've all come here from different paths. And Russell started with manual labor type stuff, physical stuff in a factory, working on the floor there, and decided, you know what, maybe this is not for me. So like a lot of us, he looked around to see what was available, found some courses he could take to learn while he's working, doing that double time stuff while you're young enough to manage it. And it's worked out for him. He's you got a bachelor's from Tennessee at Chattanooga. You've been senior vice president, CIO, and CISO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. So if you want to know how to forge money afterwards, Russell's your man. And so he's got some insight into what's in the mind of your chief information security officer, having been one and worked with them. And I can only imagine what you've had to deal with at the Federal Reserve. So a lot of perspective, a lot of good things here. So Russell, I'm going to hand off the mic here. I'll mute it first. And Russell Eubanks.
I was gobsmacked. I remember the day so well, that day. Built up my courage to go up to my boss's office, and just for perspective, the very top of the left executive suite. You had to be invited. My immediate supervisor, the second in charge of this place, the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, had to pretty much be summoned to go there. You couldn't just casually, hey, boss, what's going on? And the reason for that was, it was a nice person, nothing, but oftentimes there was like senators and governors and mayors and leaders and people you hear about on the news up there to advise and guide my boss and his boss, the number one and number two in charge. So I kind of made an appointment, work with the executive assistant to get on the schedule on this day. Had a suit on, ready to go, a little bit nervous because I knew what I was about to say to my boss, the second in command here. Took in a deep breath, escorted into the area, took my appointed seat, took in another deep breath, and I said, okay, hey boss, thanks for seeing me. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy. You've got like a lot of cool things to worry about and all that. And he looked at me and he says, hey, that's what I'm here for. I'm your boss. How can I help? Took in one more deep breath. And I said, on this day, hey boss, love the opportunity, the privilege to serve, to be the senior vice president, the CIO, and before that, the CISO, leading a huge and very talented security team. Boss, I think today, March 9th, 2020, I think that's a great day for me to go start my own business. See, the Sunday before, just a couple days before, the Fed's very methodical in what they do. They're very open after they make moves in place. They got meetings scheduled for when they'll talk about the economy. And just this week, they made some adjustments to interest rates. Very methodical, very clear, very process oriented. See, the Sunday before this day, without warning, without a notice, they had an emergency meeting and they cut the interest rates because of this word that we didn't quite understand yet, that we all know all too well, was starting to have an impact on the global economy. I believe today is a great day for me to go start my business. It's what I said to my boss that day. He says, I want you to think about it. It's a big decision. You sure you want to do this? You're kind of at the top of the org. You're helping to run a very important organization. And do not take that for granted. 5.5 years, an amazing time. I walked back to my office, looked out the window. I took another deep breath and I thought, what in the world did you just do? You walked away from the thing that, as BB said earlier, I started my career at working in a factory, steel toe boots, hard labor, very dangerous type of work environment. Took advantage of tuition reimbursement. They allowed me, they paid for my school. I went to school during the day. I worked at night and took advantage of that benefit. And I suppose I'd still be there if not for them allowing me to go do that as a benefit. So what in the world was rattling around in my mind at that time? And I'll tell you, you may never be a CISO, and I get that. You may want to be one someday in the future, I get that. Or maybe you're wondering, what in the heck was Russell thinking? What in the heck rattles around in the mind of people that have the privilege of leading people that lead people that do cybersecurity things. So I think, with your pen tester into security, or just wondering, how can you have a better understanding of what's going on in the mind of your respective security leader, whether you have the CISO title or not? If you look at the org chart and they're the top person and that top person's responsible for security things, even if you're the person who gets ready in the morning with your whole security team, like if you're the team of one, how to think about that. See, for me, the best advice I've ever been given is this right here: get wisdom as cheaply as you can. What does that look like? Someone who's non-cyber, non-tech, someone who's in cyber, hanging out here. An amazing event yesterday, today, and tomorrow, Wild West Hackin Fest. What does it look like to be able to learn from others? To not have to get the same metaphorical scars on your back, or punches in the gut, or those problems that we read about on a pretty regular basis. What would it look like to be able to get wisdom as cheaply as you can? That's my design for this. And of all the things to think about, I thought, well, how can I distill this message into just 3 points? 3 things that I want to invite you to consider over the next few minutes in this journey of what in the world rattles around in the mind of people that lead cybersecurity teams. So first thing. So I thought you'd laugh. I thought that was a good point for, no? Okay. It's kind of directional here. The first thing that people that lead people that do cybersecurity things need to do is to be able to manage up. But if I were completely honest, I would have to tell you, I hate that word. I hate that word. And I respect folks who are managers. I've been a manager before, but I don't ever remember in my career waking up in the morning before the alarm goes off and say, I'm excited. I get to go be managed today. I want to be managed today. I want someone to tell me what to do, and I'm going to do that. When I worked in a factory, I was managed. Literally, they had a time. You can go to the bathroom at this time. You can step away from your 500-ton steel press that goes up and down and makes stoves at Maytag. And I'm grateful for the opportunity I had there. But I was managed. I was told what to do and when to do it. And I was expected to be there and catch pieces of steel that eventually became a Maytag stove because I was being managed. I like this idea of what's it like to lead up. That same relationship that I had with my leader at the Fed, the second in charge of a very important organization in the southeast part of the country where I live in Atlanta. This idea of how can I help second in command there to understand what the team that I was privileged to lead was doing, what the team that I was privileged to lead was doing, so that he, and before he, it was a she, where he and she could be able to understand, oh, that's what the team's up to. That's what they're trying to achieve. That's the struggles that they're facing without my leaders having to go hang out here with us, which would be kind of cool to see, or having to go take a class or get a certification or do a training or all the things, the barriers that would be in place if we're not careful when we try to communicate the things that we're trying to do. What would it look like if we as leaders, you as your particular security leader, became able to learn another language? What if we could learn another language? We could speak another language, be able to communicate in a way so that people can actually understand what we're saying. And you might be tempted to think, okay, English, it's a pretty good language. Some of you are able to speak other languages. I admire you. I'm not really able to do that. But what if we think of being able to speak IT and to speak cyber, but then to do so in a way that we can communicate to people so they can understand what we're doing? What if we be able to speak the language of business? What's the business goals? What's the business mission? What's the business strategic priorities? What are those, and how can we connect the dots so that our leaders, our stakeholders, the chair of our board, our boss, our team can be able to understand the real reason why we're doing the things that we're doing? And oftentimes this comes in the form, not with Paul Vixie earlier. I walked into the room when he was going, I'm like, look, there's a slide of TCP dump. I remember going through and parsing through that back in the day. But I can't take that slide. I can't take technical things like that and communicate what the team is up to an audience that doesn't understand that it's hex and you got to translate it, got to understand and go bit by bit and figure out what's happening there. I need to know that. Long time ago, I had the opportunity to do that, but I can't take that to my boss and say, look at our team. We deserve a pat on the back. We're doing really great work. We need to be able to help them see the real reason what we're doing. Maybe it's in a chart, maybe it's in a graph, maybe it's in some colorful little visuals that helps them be able to do what leaders do best. It's just make a decision. Draw a conclusion. Invest in things that can help the company go further and go faster. And another thing that we get to do as leaders, whether we're leading ourselves, leading a team, leading a whole cybersecurity function, is to also, in that moment, to our leader, to our board, to our audit committee, to whomever we're communicating the message, be mindful of. And maybe even sometimes close your eyes and in your mind, see the faces of those that you're privileged to lead and represent and understand what they're working on, the challenges they're facing as you're delivering the message of here, leader, here, leadership team, here, chair of the board, what we're working on and how it helps the organization go further and go faster. So in this first one, again, get wisdom as cheaply as you can. What is one thing that I would invite you to consider? Is there any wisdom in that lesson where you don't have to learn that lesson the hard way like I did? What's the wisdom in that lesson? For me, I've learned that my chief financial officer, the person in charge of the finances, like they allow my project to be funded, they deny my project from being funded, they say, I don't want to talk about, or I don't really care about that cyber stuff, just go away, Russell. I'd rather you just leave and come back maybe next year. We'll talk next year. They're busy operating a business. They're busy funding priorities for the company so they can achieve their goals and their priorities. They're not going to learn to speak our language. What would it look like for us to speak the language of our chief financial officer, our chief executive officer, our chief operating officer, so that we can communicate to them what's their priorities in a way that they can understand and make a business decision? An example I give, and some of you have heard me say this before, anybody been to or fan of Nordstrom? So Nordstrom, an organization, you go buy clothes, maybe you have some clothes and maybe you shop there on a regular basis. As it turns out, Nordstrom, as an example, they have a reason why they exist. And they have that in the form of a mission statement. The reason Nordstrom exists is, and there's words, you can go to their website right now, you can type and say, why does Nordstrom exist? You can know that. And if you were to do that on the next slide here, it shows exactly what that is. The reason that Nordstrom exists. It's right here. To give customers the most compelling shopping experience possible. That's why Nordstrom exists. Now, do they have cyber needs? Of course. Do they have IT needs? Yes. Do people try to steal from them and get a pair of jeans or shirts or hats or cool things from them without paying for it? All those things are true. But the real reason Nordstrom exists is to give customers the most compelling shopping experience possible. That's why they're there. So with Nordstrom as an example, a question for you is, what's the mission of your organization? Why does your company exist? What is it trying to achieve? And while cyber is important to your company, it's important to my company, it's important to every place I've worked at, every place you've worked at, and every place you will work at. So far in my career, I've never worked at an organization that just exists to do cyber. I love cyber, you love cyber, we all love cyber, and we're here this week and weekend because of cyber things. We want to get better, But that's not the real reason why we look at our logs. That's not the real reason why we respond to incidents. I remember back in the day, we had pagers. The pager would go off and it would wake up my dog, which would wake up my wife. My wife would give me one of these and says, hey, your thing's going off again. There must be something going on at your company. Wake up and go deal with your noisemaker. But the real reason, if we were to put ourselves in a position of working on the security team at Nordstrom, the real reason they're looking at logs, the real reason they're communicating policy, the real reason they're doing the compliance things that they surely have to do is the reason I look at the logs every morning is I want to help give customers the most compelling shopping experience possible. That's a place where we can, whether we're CISO or not, whether we want to be a CISO or not, whether we're wondering, why in the world is my boss who's leading our cybersecurity team think about these thoughts of our mission statement? I'd rather do cyber things. Instead, what's the real reason why you're doing the things that you're doing? And my advice would be to look at your mission statement. Have subtasks, because I'm doing logs, I'm doing policy, I'm responding to incidents, I'm doing forensics, whatever I'm doing. But tie it back to and say, the real reason I'm doing what I'm doing is, and simply copy paste. Make it be easier for those who are in charge of finance. Make it be easier for those who are on the board of you're on the board of directors for your organization, your auditors, your assessors, to say, oh, well, that's why you're doing that. And a subtask is what you're doing, your actual task and the things that you're trying to achieve. What would it look like to speak a second language, the language in this case of business? That's thing number one. Thing number two is another view, another paradigm, another thing that rattles around in the mind of someone who has the privilege to lead people, bless you, that do cyber things, is this. The need to lead down. And by down, I don't mean talk down or demeaning. I'm thinking in my mind of an org chart. You think of the org chart, you got the security people, the leaders of security people, and then maybe the directors, maybe the managers, maybe the AVPs, whatever that might look like, to look down the organization chart and say, what are they thinking? What's on their mind? What's important to them? What are they saying right now? What are they worried about? You're new in leadership. Maybe it's not that long ago that you were in that same position, so you can have some empathy. Yeah, I remember what it felt like. And maybe some of the things your folks that you're privileged to lead are saying things like, well, Russell, he's not technical anymore. Yeah, he used to have domain admin access, he used to make GPOs and tell Windows servers what to do. But now that's not necessary anymore. Now he's lost his technical edge, or maybe he's not one of us. He spends all his time up at the top floor talking to those executives, and sometimes comes in a suit versus in, well, things that aren't a suit. This idea is it's different. Russell just doesn't get us anymore. Because hopefully what your security leader, your CISO, your director, your manager, whatever their title is, maybe they're focusing on these verbs instead. These things, what are things that they could do? Lead, here's where we're going to go. A great book that I like to read from John Maxwell. He's written like over 50 books. And actually, when he was asked, hey, John, how did you read 50 books? I saw him in an interview response. How is it you're able to write 50 books? And his answer was amazing. His answer was, anybody heard this quote from him? You've heard of John Maxwell? Okay. So you have, cool. So he's asked, how is it you've written 50 books? And his answer kind of surprised me. He says, because I'm old. That's well played, well played. But he gives this test. He has a leadership test in one of his books. He says, if you wonder if you're a leader, there's only one thing that you need to do. If you're wondering if you're a leader, all you got to do, turn around and see if anyone following you. If you turn around and you see that someone's following you, then you've passed the test. You're a leader. If you turn around and you look, there's nobody there, maybe not. Leading, motivating, sharing, finding things that are important to those and for those that you're privileged to lead and serve, versus boss around and tell them what time they can do or can't do certain things. Succession plans. One of the most important things I did long before I built up my courage to go and decide, hey, today's a great day to go leave a very stable organization, is working with who would be nominated years before that as the deputy CISO, the person who's like second in line or at succession planning. See, why was that important? Whether I knew I was leaving or not, it was important for me to identify or have someone help me identify who's someone who might be the next in line. And maybe it's 2 or 3 years from now, but maybe through education, maybe through experience, maybe through exposure. Hey, I'm going to go brief the board next month and I'd like for you to come with me. Wear a suit, try not to say anything, and just kind of hang out. And it's something as simple as that, to expose them to the formalities, expose them to the conversations from people who have an extraordinary amount of impact on how the organization works. That, and do more things to help them get into that position. Or maybe having strategic plans. Hey, I can metaphorically look into the future that says 3 years from now, what would it look like if we had EDR in place or AI in place or whatever acronyms that you like, man, somebody would be nice to have those things, to not have to worry about certain conditions, making sure that the configurations that are in place are monitored and checked. And whenever they change, we know and be able to respond to those immediately. I like to ask a question. When I teach and mentor and help others do consulting as well, I like to ask this question. I found a single question that I can ask. And that question, I want to have different answers to it based on the individuals or the teammates that I asked that question of. And the question is, how long can you stand to not know? How long can you stand to not know? So I got that single question. I can ask that single question of a bunch of people, and I can expect a different answer, but I want to get their answer, not my answer. Let's just imagine ask that question. How long can you stand to not know the running configuration on your production firewall has changed? I know my answer. What's your answer? Network administrator, person in charge of and monitoring and checking that. How long can you, sir, how long can you, ma'am, stand to not know until the running config on your production firewalls have changed? And they'll look at their watch. They'll say, well, maybe I can stand to wait 5 minutes. Cool, 5 minutes. There's my question. I've asked that person that question, and I'm going to find out for them how long they can stand to not know the running config on their production firewall has changed. 5 minutes, got it. Thank you very much. We're going to work on our security team to give you the capability to know that. And ideally have a hook into change control that says, was there an authorized change window for, say, Thursday at 7 p.m., where Thursday at 7 p.m. someone put in a ticket. They said, yes, we're going to change the running config on our production firewalls at 7 p.m. on Thursday. What's the capability that we now have? The capability is we can detect authorized change. Fill out the ticket. I'm going to do this work. And when this work happens, I'm going to be notified about it. Yes, seriously, reach out your right hand all the way over, pat yourself on the back. That's a huge accomplishment to be able to detect authorized change, because not because auditors are going to give you or not give you a finding, not because someone's going to come and check on you, but when that change happens to the running config on your production firewall and there's not a change approval ticket, I want someone to wake up. And that someone can be me, that someone can be you, but that change to something important. And I can take that same question, I can ask someone, maybe they're in charge of Windows security. Hey, person in charge of Windows security, how long can you stand to not know when someone's been added to, say, an admin group, maybe domain admins? And you're going to give me that answer. And maybe you'll say, I'd like to know right away, but I really want to know in a report the next morning. Can you make that possible? Can you give me a report in the morning when I sip my coffee? I'm not sure what to work on. I've got something in my inbox, and that thing on my inbox can tell me something's changed. Was there a ticket for it? Was it an approved thing? And just as a way to just make sure that I know when that happens, I've taken that single question, asked it to another key stakeholder, I've got their answer, and I provide that visibility in the form of a strategic plan that says, in the future, we want to have these capabilities oftentimes leveraging technology, things that we know here. I didn't teach anything. You want to know when those things happen. But unless you've programmed your technologies, maybe your log solution, maybe your configuration monitoring, you may not have the capability to answer those questions for your stakeholders and answer those questions for the teams that you're privileged to lead. Another thing that I always enjoy doing when I wasn't traveling, I really don't miss traveling, except for I've loved traveling here. I've not been, like all of us, probably not been traveling a whole lot. But when I wasn't traveling at the Fed, I'd take the same backpack right here, put a fresh cup of coffee or fresh cup for a fresh cup of coffee in it. And I would have my executive assistant to block time on my calendar, get to work, get all settled in. And I got an appointment on my calendar. Every day I was in the office, I had an appointment. I would get a cup of coffee, and that cup of coffee, I would pour in there, and I just kind of walk around. How are you doing? What's going on? Is there any chance that anything I can help with? Can I loan me to you? There's a problem, a challenge. Why is it working that way? Why doesn't any people get us? Why does that decision come? Why is there a focus on the audit? Whatever it might be. Or maybe it's just, we should just go away. And you know what? That's cool too. But looking for things that only we can do as people who have the privilege to lead people that do cyber things, maybe being intentional about that, maybe saying in the future, the capability we want to have is that being fully aware of our current state. Here's how things are right now. We wish they get better, but we're not going to wake up and magically they're going to be better. By casting vision for and saying, here's what we expect in the future. How can we get there and have the capability to answer questions such as, how long can you stand to not know? And ask someone that question, take that answer with gratitude and go figure out how to give them what they need most. So what's the wisdom in that lesson? What's the wisdom in number two? Thing number two, for me, it's this. What can only you do? What can only you do? See, when I was working at the Atlanta Fed, Atlanta's a massive city. Maybe you've flown through there. Maybe you've got stuck in traffic there. And for that, I sincerely apologize. It's terrible, terrible traffic. It just is. Big cities are just terrible traffic. So I lived 25 miles northwest of where the offices were located. And what that meant was I had at least a 45-minute commute each way. On the way to work, I would load up my phone with podcasts. I load up, I have times to call my parents, call my kids, call all the things to kind of occupy my time taking a very boring and traffic-filled commute to work. And one of my other things that I had on my list of things to do for my commute was to, okay, Russell, what are 3 things as CISO that only you can do? What are 3 things? And it wasn't that I'm better than someone else, right? And that was not that perspective at all, but some things that if I did not do those things, they just wouldn't get done. Maybe that thing was to prepare materials for a board briefing. Maybe it was to prepare a justification to the executive team to promote someone to the position of deputy CISO. Maybe it was a proposal to fund the capability to respond to ransomware faster. It's just making up things. These ideas of if I did not do those things would not get done. And so on my commute, I would think, thing number 1, thing number 2, thing number 3. Got it. And as I go about my day, I'll look for opportunities to pause and do those things. And on the days when I'm commuting back home, hour and a half-ish, which is just awful, I would do a little checklist. How did I do at thing number 1? Did I do it? I did. Cool. Thing number 2, did I do that too? Yes, I did. And then thing number 3, on the way home, with plenty of extra time there to see how well am I holding myself accountable to things. This wasn't my boss telling me what to do. This was me saying, if I don't do those things, it's going to block people from achieving their goals. It's going to block them from being able to do the things that they need to do. The things they're counting on me to do, I need to go and do those. Approve something, present something, unblock something, whatever that something is. And when that happened, 1, 2, 3, thing number 1, thing number 2, thing number 3 occurred, I felt really good inside. Yes, I went to meetings, I did some things, and I did those three things. And on days when I did not, and TBH, it happened a fair amount, the next morning, the next day I went back into the office, I had thing number one, thing number two, thing number three, and whatever leftover carryover things from the previous day that were not able to be done, holding myself to account. What are some things that only you or only they can do? And are there little systems? Are there reminders? Are there calendar appointments? Are there behaviors in your commute and starting your day or planning for your next day that can position you to be able to do just that? How can you set yourself up for success? And not just yourself, but those that you're privileged to lead. So that's thing number two. Third and final thing, number three. So we've led up the org, we've led down the org. What's left? Yeah, side to side. We need to move laterally. As we do that, who are those people? What are they up to? I can think of my boss, and people can think of people that report directly to me, but who are these folks? These folks are, again, if you look at the whole organization chart, who are my peers? Maybe it is the chief financial officer. Maybe it is the chief physical security officer. Maybe it is director of facilities. Maybe it's the manager of maintenance and facilities. But as I think about them, my task is not to try to convince them to come to Wild West Hackin Fest. As cool as an experience it is, they're not going to come. They're doing their things. My job is to help make cyber more relevant to them. Not by having hacks, not by having cyber things, but by helping them connect the dots in a meaningful way. Maybe this is by going to their team meetings, like their department meetings that they lead, and they talk about the things that are important to them, and not just have a cyber briefing once a year because it makes us feel good to go give a cyber briefing to them once a year. Maybe it could look like that. Relationships with them matter a great deal. And I'll give some ideas of how to do that. But this idea to help take cyber with them, because the truth is they're going to go places you can't go. They're going to be exposed to things that, because of your role and their role being so different, they're going to be exposed to things that you won't be exposed to. What would it look like to metaphorically, what would it look like to literally have them take cyber with them when they go about their day, when they lead their teams, when they solve their problems, when they're faced with the things they're faced with that aren't cyber things? But what's that message? What's that one thing that we want them to be aware of? Maybe you heard before this idea, and maybe at your company you've used that expression. Cyber is everyone's job. Anyone have that at your company or companies you've used to work at? A couple of y'all are saying, yeah, cyber is everyone's job. What if your job's not cyber? What if you are an accountant? How does an accountant think about cyber? How does the accountant know the thing that you want them to do when they see something weird? Maybe they see their mouse and cursor moving, like, ooh, that's not supposed to happen. I've got like hands free on the keyboard and things are happening. Cyber's everyone's job. I'm not sure, that seems vague. Maybe we can borrow from others. Maybe we can borrow from other entities who invite or compel or have a call to action that says, here's what we want you to do. You, the accountant, we want you, when you see something, we want you to what? Yeah. Maybe that's the call to action. They're not going to decode packets. They're not going to understand, but maybe the message is when something weird happens, here's Russell's cell phone number. When something weird's happened, here's a email address or a Slack channel or a Teams message, whatever technology, whatever that one thing you want that accountant to do is, maybe you enroll them by saying, you're a part of our team. We don't have enough people on our cyber team to sit beside everyone as you make your decisions to go about doing your day. But when you see something, here's how we want you, the accountant, to say something. What would it look like when they go to meetings and places and briefings that you can't go to, for them to be aware of that? To know that we're not asking them to fix the problem, even if they click on something that causes something bad to happen, and life happens. But even if they're the one who caused an incident, for them to recognize the responsibility and the desire we have for them to pick up that phone or call that or send that message and say, you know what, I did this thing and I recognize it's going to hurt the company. And I recognize if I don't say something, that it might be a while until you see something or see the impact of what happened there. What would it look like if we allowed them to take cyber with them by making it clear and actionable and not 400 things to do, but one thing? What's that one thing? When I was briefing one of my peers, former peers, responsible for a significant financial system, like money moving around the world financial system. I gave her a briefing. She was literally in charge of this whole operation of moving money around the world. Gave her a briefing. Here's what we're doing. Here's our plans. Here's our current capabilities. Here's some of the opportunities that we have to make cyber better and more relevant for this very important financial system. And she says, hey, thanks for the briefing. I love that you come to my office every month and you give me a briefing of what's going on with this cyber thing. But I got to tell you, sometimes I struggle with what you want me to do about this. And so my former peer, my former colleague, Cheryl, she asked me a question. And this was her question. Russell, how do I think about this? How do you want me to think about this report? And it's got colors, it's got numbers, and I see trends and things going up and down. And I can sort of understand that, but how would you like me to think about that? And I thought, are you kidding? We spent hours making this briefing. I've come up to your office once a month for so many years, and you're just now asking that question? And then immediately I thought, wait a second. That question actually is a gift to me, and maybe a gift to you to help you think about, well, when you give that briefing and you communicate to someone, here's the status, how can we make sure that they get it, that their head's nodding? Okay, I see the risk is going up and we should probably do something about the risk going up, or hey, the risk is going down. Good thing you're doing the things you're doing. What's that feedback loop that we can get from them that maybe when we think about questions like this, when I leave Cheryl's office, what do I want her to do or to know or to carry with her as she carries cyber with her to lead the team of really important people doing really important things? Not just the interaction, but is there a message? Hey, when you go to your team briefing, if you could let everyone know, hey, be really careful about whatever, or be aware of, or you know what, it's been a while, Cheryl, would you remind everyone when they see something, here's how they want them to say something. Here's a slide, put it in your deck, and you can just go through it and brief your team. That would be fantastic. And it would be fantastic. So what's the wisdom in this lesson? This one's interesting. This one's tough on a bunch of different levels. The job I had before I was privileged to be the CISO at the Atlanta Fed, my boss, my immediate leader, was the Chief Information Security Officer of the company. And it was a he, so I'll use he. I won't say his name because that wouldn't be cool. But my boss, he said to me, hey, Russell, I know you moved to Atlanta. You want to be a cybersecurity leader. You want to be a CISO. And as you know, I'm the CISO. I'm like, yeah, I know. But he asked me a question I wasn't prepared for. And usually when I get big questions, I like to sleep on it. I find when I kind of walk away from a situation, kind of think about something else, and then come back, I've got a really good answer. But I knew I could not do that for my boss, the CISO of a company I had several years ago. And his question was this: Russell, I know you want to be CISO. If you were in my chair and I was in your chair, like literally in his office, so we were like swap roles, what advice would you give me? I thought, that's a tough one, because if I say something terrible, I'm gone. If I say something that's not very smart and intellectual, maybe I'm gone then too. What do I say? And with about 3 seconds, like a deep breath, it hit me. Here's what I said. I said to my boss, hey, I can't see all the details of your calendar, but it's not about that. Don't change anything. But if I could see the details of your calendar, comma, boss's name, I would ask you this question. What's the percentage of time that you're here in our department, very big, very influential department, versus the amount of time that you're, say, at someone else's staff meeting or team meeting or audit committee, out in the proverbial community of our organization versus being in the community of our security team? I think my answer to you, comma, my boss's name, is that's the advice I would give you. And I felt good about that. I thought, I survived. That was kind of a little sweats. I was like, oh, that was a little tense for me. An interesting approach. But here's why that story matters. Because when I got in the chair for the first time, when I got to be the CISO at the Atlanta Fed, what do you think, what memory replayed in my mind? It was that memory. It said, when my boss, who knew I wanted to be CISO, said, what advice do you have for me, Russell? And I said, here's my advice for you, comma, my boss's name at that place. It hit me. And integrity is really important to me. And it's important to you too. It hit me harder than the words I said to my boss back then. Hey, Russell, let me see your calendar. How much time are you spending in the department doing cyber things, cheering for, mentoring, leading, coaching, all the verbs that are necessary, versus how much time am I spending in Cheryl's office? How much time am I spending with my peers? Those who have equal responsibility, but for different functional units, how much time am I spending there? How much time is your CISO spending? Is there a magic ratio? Is it 50-50? I don't know. Is it 75-25? Is it 25-75? Whatever it is, I just imagine making it one notch better could benefit everyone your CISO is privileged to lead. So if I was to think about what are some things that maybe if you wanted to go in and apply or take action on the things that I've talked about, those thing number one, thing number two, thing number three, I think it's not necessary. It shouldn't be the case. It seems unfair for you to wonder what in the world rattles around in the mind of somebody who leads people, that does cyber things, even if they used to do those very things in former careers. Great resource here. The link is shown there from Rafik. It's a CISO mind map. Actually learned about this just a few weeks ago. This idea of it's an eye chart. The link is, it's an eye chart that says, what are the sections and the categories and the things that CISOs need to worry about? Things such as budget is one of those things. Strategic planning is one of those things. The business, the real reason our company exists, Nordstrom reason, is there. Governance, how the function of cyber operates, how you govern it, the policies that are in place, the directives that your team issues out. Extraordinary resource. And again, the link is right there in full attribution to Rafik for making this CISO mind map of all the categories of things that need to rattle around in the mind of those who lead people that do cyber things. So the rest of my story, again, after taking a deep breath in my boss's office, amazing facilities. If you ever get a chance to go, highly recommend. Literally takes up a whole city block. Amazing. I shifted from, I have to go to work, to I get to go do a whole bunch of cool things. Instead of just focusing on one super important organization, I have now the privilege to go help be the CISO for a bunch of organizations, maybe smaller organizations that don't have the ability or the knowledge or the budget to have someone full-time, maybe every Monday, this company, maybe Tuesday, that company, and just that experience to say, here's what can help your company go further, faster. Help several folks be able to get their first CISO job. That's just amazing pants. I'll never forget when I was appointed the CIO. It means I had to work on a plan to make someone be and appoint them as the CISO. And the career highlight for me in my 5.5 years of being there was not getting promoted twice and getting exposed to some wicked, cool, smart things and people, and just extraordinary. But when I got to reach out my hand and invite my friend and colleague and now CISO of the Atlanta Fed, Alan, congratulations. We worked together. You're now CISO of the company. Transferring responsibility over, I miss it. It was tough, but he earned it. And he got it, and the board all approved, and I got to deliver that message. That was the highlight of my Fed career, is to be able to put someone in position to be able to assume that, and leading the same magic team, doing some really cool things and cheering for them the whole way because of the importance they have in what we do. That was my highlight. Getting to learn something new every single day. And like today, tomorrow, yesterday, a whole bunch of things that we all get to learn to make us the best version of ourselves. To get to share my story with you today, what in the world was going on in Russell's mind when he thought the days before the pandemic would be a great day to start your own business? Flying solo. I know that I've got everything I need to grow my business because I believe that every single CISO, every single director, every single manager, every single individual contributor, person in cybersecurity can make an impact on the organization, especially when they understand why the company exists. And I believe those of you who know me, I'm extraordinarily optimistic. I can see the good and terrible, nasty things. That's just how I was raised. I also have this belief that eventually we can move cyber. If you think of the balance sheet where you got assets and liabilities in a column here, we've got our liabilities of paying IT and cybersecurity. We've got our assets of maybe customer growth, acquisition, extra revenue for the company. I've got this belief that someday cyber can be an asset. Someday cyber can help the business go further and go faster. Someday Nordstrom can look at its mission statement and says, we're better off at Nordstrom because the cyber team, whoever works at the cyber team at Nordstrom, is doing the things that they're doing. We're not there yet. But I think by focusing on things that matter and things that rattle around in the mind of those who have the privilege to lead people that do cyber things can make that type of impact. I really appreciate you spending time with me. There's my contact information. Love to have you hang out. Any questions that you have now or later, love to take them. And thank you for your time, the last 50 minutes of hanging out with this CISO.